Welcome to the Parker Podcast Collection.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and this week I'm joined by
Ian Bruce
and Patrick Kay.
You can contact us on email at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. Right then, so it's GDC right now at the time of recording, and there was some stuff already announced ahead of time, probably the most important of which being this whole business with Valve and their new headset that they're bringing out in conjunction with HTC.
Yes.
So, I mean, what do we think about this then?
Yeah, this is massive.
We do need to be clear about what's been revealed, though. It's not... The HTC one is one of potentially many headsets that will work with the Valve system, but this is the first one that's been unveiled. The HTC Vive. Why can't they just call them Dave or Bob? Jesus.
How does this differ from the Rift then?
It's two screens instead of one. The resolution is lower than, for example, the Gear VR is, despite being two screens, but it's going to be wider field of view. It uses a different tracking system. It's got something like 72 sensors all over the headset. And it uses two tracking sensors inside the room, so it basically tracks you inside an entire room. So you can walk around the whole room, and it won't lose tracking. There's also some sort of input device which it also tracks, which are represented in the game world. So it looks like they're like fully embracing the whole standing experience. It looks like they may even have some sort of input system, which is obviously a huge deal. But
sorry, even though it can be a standing and walking around experience, it is wired. It's not wireless, so there's still potential for you to decapitate yourself by moving quickly.
Yeah. But the fact that they can track you inside an entire room is pretty massive.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, the Oculus demos, the recent ones with the Crescent Bay, had people standing up. So they obviously had to sign a disclaimer and stuff. But it did have them standing up and walking about on this mat and stuff. But yeah, this is a very different tracking system, and we still don't know all the details about it.
So what's this VR base station? Is
that's the tracker?
That's the tracking thing.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is that like a box that just
Who knows?
goes somewhere in the room?
Who knows?
Who knows? That's the thing. Who knows? There's been a lot of talk on Reddit about this. Hurrah for the Reddit. I think it was this, people were talking about it uses the same system that the Wii uses for tracking stuff.
Okay.
Was that this? That might have been something else. There's been a lot going on this week. We're recording it on the second day of GDC.
Yeah. So just before Valve's actual press conference.
When they do or do not, when they have or have not announced Half-Life 3. Obviously, we'll have to stop the podcast because the internet will just cut out if that happens.
Well, no, we'll have to do two different podcasts. One presuming that they did, and one presuming that they didn't.
And we'll hate on them either way. No, we won't.
Yeah, we'll put the wrong one out.
Yeah, there may be a slight insert at this point, perhaps, but that depends on how
smooth.
much of an awesome job I can be bothered to do with the edit, I suppose. So there we go.
Well, if it's as awesome as you normally do, not very awesome. Although, to be fair, I've not had a chance to listen to any podcasts. Anyway, so yeah.
Traitor.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I'm not really bothered about it's lighting a fire under Oculus's arse. Oculus have their own reasons for doing what they're doing. It's not like they're a bunch of fly-by-nights. They've shipped a fair few amount of development kits, and they continue to support it. Palmer Luckey was was talking proficiently about their new Unity integration system that's coming into public beta at the end of March. They've got a lot of money behind them. They will make it work, Oculus. It's a bit tedious for everybody to be dismissing Oculus because another new shiny has arrived on the scene. But although it's a fairly heavily developer-centric system, consumers have managed to wheedle their way in. So we should expect this kind of clamouring when these things happen. Bless them.
I think I made a reference to like the Great American Land Grab of like 1830 something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's everyone's getting a piece of the pie now. Absolutely everyone is all the big companies are at least involved now.
It is becoming overwhelming. I just sort of looked at it and went, well, that's great, and I'm glad Valve are doing it because they've obviously got a kind of awesome platform to plug this into, and that's going to be a big selling point for any gamers who are interested in this hardware. But yeah, it just kind of leaves the question, like, all that work that the guys are doing at Oculus, is that going to benefit this? I mean, I know a lot of the guys from Valve left to go to Oculus, didn't they?
Yeah, quite a few of them.
So
specifically, they're VR guys. So, I mean, it's definitely good for VR, and that's really the only thing that's of interest to me, to be honest. It's like you say, it's going to be massively appealing for gamers. I mean, Steam is essentially PC gaming, so to have a piece of hardware that is so heavily connected with that ecosystem is great, and it's great for developers because they know that their platform is well supported. They know that they can get actual numbers on who they can target, what sort of numbers they can target with VR experiences. It's definitely a good thing for VR. And I mean, it's hard to know at the moment. I don't really think there's such thing as like one headset to rule them all. But it's until we know what the kind of consumer Rift specs are going to be, we can't really compare them yet. We're still comparing, developer kits which are like half a year apart. But yeah, it's awesome news. It's very exciting for anyone who's interested in VR, certainly, and definitely anyone who's interested in developing for VR. And yeah, I think it is difficult to know how much it's going to how one is going to benefit the other. I mean, I know that Oculus and Valve were sort of very open with their research, and I mean, for example, low persistence is something that was prototyped in the early Valve headset. Do you guys remember that? There was a dual screen headset which they basically made to show what VR would be like 5 years down the line. Yeah. So they built a prototype where money was not an object. They literally just built the best thing they could to demonstrate it. And one of the things they used was a very high refresh rate screen that had low persistence. And that's something they shared with Oculus, and so Oculus massively benefited from that suggestion from Valve. So I mean, it's hard to tell. Are they still as open with each other in sharing that research? I really couldn't tell you. But
it's also worth pointing out that there are other HMDs in development and available for non-consumer use. This is just the one that's heading to consumer release first. There are other ones that have been on the scene for a while now, and they're being used and stuff, but they're not necessarily ones that people will fork out and sit on their couch and play with.
There are loads, and that's the thing. I've been watching this for like the last 2 years, and they're popping up like all the time now. It's impossible to basically keep an eye on it all, to follow it all. There's so many, but it wasn't really until OpenVR was announced that I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. This actually seems like it's something worth being in that same ecosystem with the Rift, and in that it's not just a mount for your phone or something that's ridiculously overpriced for a completely high end market, which doesn't have that kind of massively supporting ecosystem that like Oculus does. It's I don't know. It's a hard one.
So Apple are getting into the market with their HMD patent, which was last week or the week before.
Yeah,
quite recently.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one.
IVR. Oh God.
I know that they're going to come out and go VR. We figured out how to make it work. That's what they're going to say, isn't it? And it's going to be like in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
Like my point is that this is definitely one that seems like a contender for like a mass consumer product in the way that, in the same way that, Oculus is striving to be. It will be interesting. It looks like the original idea is still the same thing, in that the Steam VR will basically support lots of different headsets, and they're not going to sort of close that off to their own hardware or anything like that. So it's I don't think it's really going to be too detrimental to Oculus. It's impossible to tell right now, really, I guess.
I just wonder if how easy it's going to be to support all those different headsets. I mean, I guess if you're optimizing a game to work in VR, you're kind of, it's kind of going to work across them all, really, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. If you're making a game for VR, you really want to make it for as many of the different platforms as possible.
It's like making a game for an Android phone,
Yeah. And that's definitely what we want to avoid here. We want to avoid the Android and Apple split. Obviously, if Apple have an HMD, then that's where they can fuck off and do that shit on their own. But for everybody else, we want to avoid having loads of different splits between. For this headset, you have to write it like this, and for this one, you have to write it like this. So, if the Steam platform handles the software, and you can this is paraphrasing definitely, but you can plug a number of different HMDs into it, then that's a fantastic thing. That's a great thing. The key thing will be if you then end up with an Oculus game or a Steam game. Because that Oculus have their own store, the Gear VR store went live this morning, I think somebody said. It's exciting times, but there's still a possibility that consumers will get fucked over, and you may end up having to buy 3 headsets if you want to play all the games on all the platforms. And I'd like to avoid that. It wasn't good for consoles, really. It just ended up being polarizing, which was
it's not really something that's good for consumers ever, is it? It's taking hostage of a franchise and separating it to sell hardware, which is like you say, it's not good for anyone.
No.
The point is, what I meant is having more VR platforms to write for a developer is a totally good thing.
Absolutely.
The thing ultimately, though, is that the platform is still essentially PC. I mean, you're playing VR games on Steam with a Rift. So in many ways, I think almost it's like Rift have forced Valve's hand. And by creating their little ecosystem, Valve have gone, oh, hang on, we've got the giantest ecosystem ever. We need to make sure that this, that we have our VR thing out as well. And, that there's that whole kind of experience for the consumer. They've got a lot more experience with that. Yeah,
well, it makes sense. I mean, Valve, like you say, they they own that ecosystem, don't they? So it only makes sense if they're excited about VR and they know that they can do it, for them to go ahead and do it. It all totally makes sense, I think. I can't wait to try one. There's only been like little smidgens of like, oh, someone's tried it and they're not allowed to talk about it, but they said it's amazing, and but
developer kits in the spring.
Yeah, it's not long, is it? And then consumer product at the end of the year, I think.
Yeah,
just in time for Christmas.
But
yeah,
I don't forget the Steam machines are due at the end of last year, and the Steam controller was due at the end of last year.
That's true.
So,
I'm really loving mine.
I'm fairly sure that the headset might be ready, but Valve they're going a bit Duke Nukem with their release dates. So also we're looking forward to Half-Life 4. So there's that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
it's good.
Portal was 2012, so it's been a while. It does look like they're at the moment at least, they're not really a games company.
True.
So yeah, for them to kind of get involved in VR, I think makes perfect sense. That it could, just building something that just integrates with their platform. I think it's a very, very cool thing. I'm very excited.
We've got no idea what form Apple's HMD will take, but meanwhile, Samsung have, they're on to round 2 of their commercial HMD with they're creating a new version of the Gear VR for their new S6 phones.
Yeah.
S6.
Well, yeah, they move a lot faster than Apple, Samsung. They normally have like a 6-month product cycle. So yeah, they do bring stuff out enormously quickly. But yeah, but this is another cool thing, because it's like if you're making stuff for Gear VR, you've now got a whole new user base to make games for, with people who've bought the new S6. So it's just win-win. It's awesome.
I just realised on the way home today that the next iPhone will be called the 6S.
Oh, right.
And this is the S6.
Yeah, so they'll be kind of like back to back.
And they're going to be out a few months between each other, probably.
Well, if you get them confused, I think you deserve everything that happens to you. So.
No, but the phone itself looks pretty nice, actually. It's got the same resolution screen as the Note 4, but with a slightly smaller form factor. And the S6 Edge has a curved screen. For what reason, I have no idea, other than that it looks cool as fuck. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think you said on a previous podcast, maybe even, the one that went out last week anyway, that might have a slightly reduced field of view with the smaller screen. Yeah.
Possibly. I haven't checked that yet, but that might be the case.
Yeah. But apparently, they were saying that the Gear VR was, it definitely exceeded their expectations at launch, which is kind of why we're not seeing it disappear on this product cycle. So, yeah, it looks like Gear VR's definitely going to be around to stay for a little while. Which,
if you do know anyone who's got one, I urge you to have a play with it, because it's a lovely thing. It's really.
I've been taking mine into work for weeks and showing people.
I kind of want to get on the train with one of ours from work and just see what people do, or go and sit in a pub and put it on and just see what happens and record people. I think that would be excellent.
The amount of people that try it and go, I want one of those, who have no interest in gaming whatsoever, is loads.
It's a lovely thing.
It's a great thing, and like I said, like from the start, it's just like the secret weapon of VR. It's how to show VR to the guy down the pub.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Yeah, like you said, the store, the kind of monetization of the store went live this morning. So that was in America, though. It's happening at the end of this month in Europe, I believe. But yeah, that's really cool, because it means more content's going to come out. People have been holding stuff back because they can't sell it yet.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, the S6 and S6 Edge are out in April, according to Engadget. So
six.
if I do end up jumping
that's
on
a
board,
great reason to get it.
yeah. Success. No, it doesn't sound quite as good, does it? No, if I do
Well,
make
that sounds
the move,
like success, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
one
I
sounds like
suppose, yeah.
success.
It's win-win if
They're
you're
very
trying to
opposite
sell-
ends of the spectrum.
If you're trying to sell either of these phones to an estate agent in Chelmsford, like, you've got no problem. Just, it's in the bag. Still buy one of them.
yeah. So yeah, I think if I do make the jump though, I'm still in contract until the S8 probably. At the rate they're going.
That would
So,
be
yeah.
neural. That would be, you put something in your brain or something, or swallow a pill.
Anal.
The Anus VR.
The eye anal. There we go. The eye probe. That's what it'll be. Anyway, moving on then.
Yeah, moving on. Intel have come up with a new method of rendering for better VR performance, apparently, which is cool
Better.
that Intel are doing anything to do with graphics, I suppose, but that's good.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's something to do with... I did actually read this article. I think it's something
Over
to
you
do
then,
with...
Rob. What's it to do with?
I think the way they're getting around it is that they're rendering stuff very well in the middle of the image, and as you...
Oh, like foveated rendering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we were
It's
talking about
called...
this at work, yeah.
But not.
It's a distortion astigmatism.
Yes,
I've
because
got an
when you
astigmatism.
look at something, you don't focus on the bits around the edges. Therefore,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to render the bits around the edges at the same quality as where your eye is actually looking,
Right.
Yeah.
which I think will work best when you have eye tracking. Otherwise, you could keep your head in one place. I've got my
Yeah.
hands in front of my head, listener, and then just you can move your eyes around inside
Yeah.
the headset, and that's when it would become a bit
That's
weird.
when you catch out the bits that aren't rendered
Yes.
fully. Yeah.
But the eye stuff will happen one day.
Yeah, in the eyes.
Anyway, right. Oh yeah. So update on the whole Nvidia fiasco. We mentioned in a previous episode that there was an issue with the way that the memory was allocated on the GTX 970, and they've actually filed a lawsuit about this now, saying that they missold the device because the 4 gigabytes of RAM on the card isn't all being used. It's not being used as a true 4 gigabyte card. I think from what I've read, it's a 3.5 gigabyte card, and the remaining half a gig is being sort of split up and used kind of in various optimization-y type ways.
Can I just put it out there? You know when you buy a 32 gig memory stick for your computer? Not 32
Yeah.
gig, is it? How many lawsuits are filed for that?
Well, I think the reason that
Are they just
this
having a go
happened was-
because there was a massive hype train beforehand? Or what's...
well,
Do we
I
think
think
it's a
it's
legitimate lawsuit in our capacity as lawyers?
I mean, personally, I'm really happy with my card. I'm getting awesome performance, like, 60 frames per second, everything on.
But you had a
loving
massive
it.
leap from your previous one, didn't you?
It was a pretty good jump, yeah. I guess I was kind of
It
in
was
the
a
middle,
massive leap, dude. That was a
yeah,
massive
to near the top, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I'm playing in 1080p. So I'm not going to notice the problem because the shortcomings are occurring when the cards are used in SLI and when they're rendering at like 1440p. So yeah, if you're pushing it to that level, then I think this card has a clear deficiency and isn't as advertised. And I think that's
Okay,
where the
that's fair
lawsuit stems from. But apparently they are going to put out a patch. Oh, they put out an apology saying they will try harder next time. But they are actually working on a patch to address this, and I think it's going to, sort out how the memory is allocated and hopefully give some performance increases or rectify the glitchiness that is happening when people are using the cards in that sort of top end way. But overall, it has sort of disappointed me really, because I was thinking I could buy another one of these and SLI it, and we'll see how it goes like later down the road, I suppose. But at the moment, I'm thinking, do I want to do that if they're not actually going to work as well as I thought?
You probably could still SLI it. You just may not get all of the power what has been advertised.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking like with VR in mind. So, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean,
you won't necessarily need two 970s to have a great experience in VR.
Yeah,
One
that's
970 will suffice.
It depends what you want to do, I suppose. But then, yeah, you can drop things down, and the overall effect is still more impressive. So,
yeah, it's not.
I guess
really about the eye candy.
No,
he's learning. He's learning.
I am. Speaking of eye candy.
Just before you do this, can we group both of them together? Because Unity 5 is now free as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, we can mention Unity. So basically, it's the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, as I mentioned at the top of the show. And so, of course, there were some big announcements about the two big game engines out there. First of all, though, this was earlier, though, so I'm going to mention it first. Mm-hmm. Unreal Engine 4 is now free. So, boom. But before that, not only is it free, but there was a story earlier last week talking about how Epic's actually giving away $5 million to developers using the Unreal Engine. So it's like they're creating like a grant system where you can sort of basically it's like for they're saying you can use it in conjunction with crowdfunding. Is that right?
Yeah. Just we do need to be very clear about the Unreal Engine 4 is free bit. It's free for you to use it. However, if you make money out of what you sell, you need to pay Epic 5% of that, above $3,000 a quarter. So,
yes.
If you're a small indie team, that may not have an impact on you. But if you're doing massive projects that require game engine-y type stuff, it's not really a viable option, which is why we don't do games at work, but we do corporate, what I would call corporate games. And there's lots of budget attached to them, and we can't necessarily be throwing 5% of that at Epic as much as we would like to. So
no, I'd say but when you're like a set up proper sort of company, I guess it's but for people who are just on their own, I mean,
yeah,
do you find that interesting, Patrick? Like, well, I mean, you're both working on stuff, but
I mean, like, this is an amazing week for like indie developers. You've got UE4 now just becoming completely free. You can just download it. You can start, working with the blueprints and stuff. And you've got Unity 5, which Unity 5 has been segmented into a free version and a paid version. And since just a few hours ago, they've basically said that now there's going to be a personal version and a commercial version. Professional version, that's the one, sorry. And essentially it now means that the free version is feature full. So there's you can use everything that you could use in the full version before, and more with all the new stuff that's come out of Unity 5, which looks amazing.
So this is you're basically going to save a bunch of money.
Yeah, dude, this is basically, imagine you've been trying to work out how you're going to come up with $1,000 for something you've been doing,
$75 a month.
Or 75, it's like £60 a month or something like that.
Yeah, bloody is.
Yeah, for a year contract as well. It's like a 12-month contract as well. And then suddenly, oh no, it's free. Best news ever. That's amazing. And like, it's really, really useful for me personally, because I've been doing stuff with Ian, and I've got the free version, he's got the paid version, and it causes problems because, there's things that we want to put in the game which we can only do with the paid version. And so it's just amazing.
But now we're on the same bit of the playing field.
Same playing field. Awesome.
Yes.
But what do you think about these grants, though, that you can get for using Unreal Engine 4? Like, I mean, would that tempt you over to that? I mean, is there are the skills transferable? Would it be too much work at this point to move across to a different engine?
To be honest, dude, there's very little things that I do because of money. the reason I spend every evening mucking about with Unity 5 is because Unity 4 from the last 3 months or so is just because I love playing with it. There's no sort of you'd have to ask. My point is, you'd have to ask someone who makes games for a living that question.
Yeah, but I mean, if you basically say, for example, you and Ian get this what you're doing up to a sort of prototype level, and then you go to sort of you've then got the option of going, I guess, to Kickstarter and pitching it to the public, or you've got the option of getting a grant from Epic. Is that something you would do if you could get enough to, say, quit your day job and just do that?
For me, those aren't necessarily the goals. It's about VR is going to happen in some form, and I'd like to get something out that people start talking about in some way, even if they all start slagging it off. I'm fairly sure they're not going to slag it off, but it's about exploring the opportunities for me that exist in this particular current niche of the market that not everybody is doing.
That's exactly how I feel about it. It's for me that the main thing is there are very little windows of opportunity in history where you can do something and it's not been done before. It's hard enough to do that in anything, but having this opportunity where VR is out there and you can make things for it and you can make an experience and make someone go to that place. The opportunity to do something that's never been done before, that's what's appealing for me. And I don't mean that in I want to be the first one to have done something. It's that playing around with VR, just kind of set my imagination, just into overdrive. And I was constantly getting all these ideas, and it's frustrating me having to wait for other developers to make these games. So it's just a case of, just dive in and try and do something with the tools that are out there. And luckily the tools that are out there are amazing, and have just got better as well, which is incredible. But yeah, that's all I'm really thinking about at the moment, is that it's an opportunity to make art on a completely new type of art platform, and that's what makes me do it. Really, that's what makes me interested in it.
To answer your question, Rob, I think either of those is a good way for a company whose goal is to make money to get some investment up front. Epic have said themselves that it's in their interest to give people money to make games, because when those games then become successful, they get their 5% back. So
yeah. But then I think that's a good enough exchange. But it did make me think at the time when I was even saying it, that these grants, they're saying they're between $5,000 and $50,000, and if you've got something that's good enough to pitch them, then why don't you just pitch it to Kickstarter? Yeah. And that's because that sort of buy-in. If you're only asking for $50,000 and it's a really good, working prototype, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's the second option. If you can't get anywhere with Kickstarter.
And to answer your other question about, is it enough for me to want to move to UE4, having done Unity for a number of years now? Not really, because I've been doing it for a number of years. I have a programming background, so I can do the codey bits quite well / easily. Let's just go with easily, not necessarily well. But I can do them and I get my head around it. So last week, I'm just going to load the page up so I can be reminded what date it was. On the 24th of February, myself and some of the guys from work went to Bristol in the UK for the Southwest VR conference. And it was a load of industry people and game devs doing micro lectures, 15-20 minutes, about different aspects of VR, where they thought it was going, how they thought it would affect different industries. And as well as all of that, which was extremely interesting from a dev point of view, and from a VR point of view as well, there were also little companies showing their stuff around the central conference area. One of these was a company called, insert company name later when I can remember who it was. And they were just 3 young guys. It was their first game, and I was talking to them about how did they find programming stuff? Did they use Unity? Did they look at UE4? And they said, and as non-programmers, they looked at Unity and went, "Oh, that's all a bit complicated." Got UE4, had the game up and running really quickly. So,
Wow.
if and I think a fair number of people have said that, if you want to get something done quickly without having to bother about any programming, and I'm not being elitist about the programming, if I could not program, that would be fucking awesome. But, you need to program some stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
But these guys had produced this slick little game in UE4 very quickly, and it worked. Networking, multiplayer, great, good fun. So if you want to get something done fast, maybe UE4 is the way to go. It does use C++ though, which is yeah. Unity uses C#, which is, I think that makes less people's heads explode. Who knows?
See, if I could get something off the ground, like what you're suggesting here with UE4, and then pitch it to Kickstarter, I can then hire a C# or C++ programmer to do the bits that I can't do.
And that's all you would need to do. However, you have to. It's the application of time to make that happen to start with.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that the very beginnings of a project on Unreal, it's a bit more. It feels a bit more like you're making a mod for a first-person shooter than starting from scratch.
Right.
And you've kind of got like more straight out of the box when you start a project. A lot of that stuff I think people turn off and remove and stuff, but with Unity it's like you start with
nothing.
You can start with nothing.
And can add whatever
grey sky, grey.
But to be fair, I mean, UE4 is the same. Just because it comes with, maybe that's the test project or the included project is a shooter, and that's what the engine is traditionally known for. And you can build stuff for the new Unreal Tournament, which is available to just get down, play, mod, add to, be part of the creative team for that, or the development team for that. Then that's okay. People have done great things with the Unreal Engine.
Deus Ex.
Kite and Lightning did all of the Kite and Lightning stuff for VR is in the UE4, and that's
looks gorgeous,
absolutely breathtaking. Yeah. So there is some stuff to be done there that isn't necessarily the generic shooter, and it's good. Hopefully we'll see some more creative stuff that isn't just another shiny manned fucking shooting game. Yeah. I'm not a hater, but there is I think with VR it's not just about how it looks. So the right tool for the job is always the thing that I'm going to stick with.
They put up a show reel of all the different Unreal games for GDC,
right.
And there's quite a range. You got Arkham Knight, that's Unreal.
Shiny lead character. Yep. Next.
DMC, Dead Island 2.
Dead Island 2.
Yep. There's a Space Hulk game.
Well, Dead Island used the Chrome engine.
Apparently not. Infinity Blade, obviously. Vanishing of Ethan Carter is UE. So yeah, there's quite a few things, and across mobile devices. Fable Legends is Unreal. So yeah, Tekken 7 is Unreal. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of games but then obviously they're going to promote that, I suppose. Adrift, that's a UE one. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's exciting times because Unreal Engine's got that kind of what do they call it? It's like a blueprints.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's like the Lego way.
That's what I'm talking about with it. It feels a bit more like you're making a mod for a first-person shooter.
Yeah, it's less
kind of you can just pull a load of toys out of the box and have.
It's less about coding stuff and more about checking boxes and dragging things across and stuff, which is fantastic. Unity has a similar system for animations called Mechanim, which is absolutely fantastic. You can chain stuff together, and it's just a box joined to this. If this happened, then this happened, and it's great. You need no programming skill because it's just like building Lego, as Pat says.
Yeah,
and that's okay. You know, it's not a problem at all. It's whatever works for you. If Unreal 4 is enough, if Unreal Engine 4 is enough for you to go out and think, fuck, maybe I can build a game, get UE4, give it a go. Because it would be nice if within 10 years the AAA games makers had less of a control on everybody's money.
Oh, yes, it would.
Well, it's starting to get that way more and more, I think, as they are finding it very slow to adapt to the way things are going and are motivated more by the lowest common denominator, shall we say, and the biggest share of the pie.
Pat was saying earlier about it's a rare time that comes along where you can be part of something that hasn't really been done before. And everything that we're doing here has been done before in some form. It's just a different way of presenting different things using technology that already exists.
Yeah.
I think it's very similar to when id and Valve and Epic were doing the shooters in the late 90s. Because they'd kind of been done before, but not in the way that they were being done by these teams. And I think VR, what's happening with VR at the moment in the game industry could be kind of similar. Could be because everybody's just kind of doing it because they want to. At Southwest VR, Nick Pitton was there, he did the Studio Ghibli. I'm going to say Ghibli.
Ghibli.
Let me say Ghibli, please.
Say Ghibli, though, if you like.
Anime?
Yeah, but he'd done a couple of...
Spirited Away, Boiler Room
He'd done
demo.
a couple of simple demos in Unity that just looked amazing when you had these cartoon animated characters in there. They looked bloody beautiful. And now he's at a conference doing stuff. He's part of the team making Crystal Rift, I think.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
He's absolutely loving it. And a year ago, he just knocked out a couple of things in Unity. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a good time to... And the Brazilian... I'm not going to say chick. How disrespectful. Ana Ribeiro from Pixel Rift.
Which is also awesome.
Yes. Which is the game where you play stuff on your Game Boy. Or something in the Rift.
It's kind of like AR coming out of a VR experience.
Yeah, and then the characters come to life and they move around the room and stuff. Which is great. Yeah. But again, she hadn't had a lot of programming experience before she did that. And now she's, living in London, not in Brazil, running a games company. So it's that kind of space, I think. And I don't have any goals to do any of that, but I think it would be nice to get some stuff done.
I just think it's an exciting thing to do. Yeah. Like, do you want to do something that's never been done before? Yeah, of course I do. That's awesome. But yeah, like another part of it is just that I kind of, there's things I want to play that aren't, that as far as I know, no one else is making. But if I can at least make a part of that, to me that's like that has a lot of value. And like part of me just wants to make a game for like us free to play. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's always been my goal with Unity stuff.
Exactly, and like Unity allows you to do that.
Yeah.
You can literally build something for like 3 or 4 people who and make an experience that's literally for those people. Yeah. Like, I don't think you could do that very easily. Like 20 years ago. It doesn't take a lot of time to put something together and to get an idea and I think uniquely in VR, a lot of it is just the feel of that space that you've put in, and it doesn't take long to put that together. It's just so cool. So cool.
I think that's the problem though. For me, it's like for you guys, the goalposts have been moved to that place where there's sort of a lot more potential and it's a different kind of thing. For me, just as someone who plays like more traditional games, my goalposts aren't over there yet, and I'm just so content and overwhelmed by the amount of things I want to play that I don't have time to.
That's okay.
So
well, here's
I don't
the thing,
have the same.
Well, here's the thing, like, no one really knows what a perfect VR game is yet. Not even people who've been making games for like their whole lives. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone's kind of in the same boat with it.
And surely VR games, like normal games, they'll be subjective anyway.
And I think it should be that way, because I
Absolutely.
think we should be forgetting what a traditional game is in regards to making a VR experience. Like, we don't know what it is yet. The whole thing at the moment should really be still about experimenting, really. Like, that's the kind of thing I find more exciting about seeing it, is experimentation, rather than, oh, there's this big AAA game that's on the horizon, which is that's cool as well. But do you know what I mean? I kind of want to just see lots of cool different experiences, because that's sort of what VR is anyway. It's that kind of.
It has the potential to show you anything. It doesn't have to be a dungeon crawler and jump scares and all of that.
No, exactly.
But I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm content with whatever big AAA game of the month is. I mean, I still think there's a lot to be said for a lot of these like early access games. I mean, Eurogamer recently gave like Sunless Sea 10 out of 10 before they changed their reviews, and that is a top-down roguelike explore around and make up your own stories game.
Oh, sure.
So,
I mean, there's no one's saying there's not great games out there. There are amazing games out there, and I'm still excited to see just normal 2D games as well. But the point is, VR is like unlimited potential, isn't it? Like, there's so much to be seen, and like it does. Obviously, there's still experiments to be made with gaming. Gaming hasn't kind of established itself as what it actually really is yet, even though it's been running for decades. No one can really tell you exactly what makes a game, and the rules keep on changing, like every few years as well. When you get kind of more experimental stuff being released more and more often, but like it's to me it's about VR games. You can put a 2D game in VR. You can't put a VR game in 2D. So it's that kind of uniqueness of the platform. Like, you literally can't have these experiences any other way. The things I'm building in Unity wouldn't work in the same way for a screen, and I'm not building them for a screen. I'm building them for VR, and that's how it should all really be in terms of VR games. They should all be built for VR, and unfortunately, financially, for most developers, that's not a luxury that everyone has. If you're building for a new platform, it makes sense to build for existing ones as well, because then you've got this large user base. But then that means you've diluted the VR experience because you've made it for something else, and like, that's something that I have the luxury of not having to care about when I make stuff for myself. So yeah, that's part of it, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I suppose I just I guess I'm more enamored with game mechanics than I am the level of immersion gaming provides these days. But I guess that's just because I don't have a VR headset, and to me it's like, I came around yours, it was like I went to Disneyland and then I came home. So it's like, that's kind of my only real experience of it. I haven't lived with it like you guys have. So
I do think it will be like that for a while yet. I think it will be a number of years perhaps before VR is where everybody hopes it will be.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because people don't necessarily want to have their world view obstructed by this bucket on their head. I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with it when my wife sneaks up behind me and pokes me in the side when I'm doing shit. It scares the living shit out of me. I'm an older man. It's going to kill me. So, I mean, and I just swear a lot, and she laughs and runs away. But for some people, that will be a showstopper. That will absolutely be a showstopper.
Yeah. But I mean, if you explain to people back in 2008 or 9 or whenever the first like iPhone 1 launched, if you explain to them how it was going to be like this year, like I still don't think like millions and millions of people would go out and buy it day one, just as they do when a new iPhone launches. Like, when that new niche thing comes out, it takes everything takes a while.
Yeah.
But I think that's good, to be honest. I think it's good to have that kind of more clustered and more independent kind of culture of development. where like you see, there are people still experimenting with different things, rather than it having to be right. Okay, this is we're launching today. It's make or break, guys, and do you know what I mean? And it totally all depending on some massive AAA game that.
And I'm sure that'll happen because those companies will want to get in that space like Sony are with Morpheus. But it would be nice if it was delayed slightly, and because of the availability of these new or of these engines that let you make games, actually anyone can do it. Also, last week or this week, Adobe announced a game engine called Stingray, I think.
Yes.
So, another one.
Yeah, so there's another one. It ties in with their other products, which, for the love of Jesus, are not cheap. But there's CryEngine still available. I think it's pretty pony for VR by all accounts, but it's still available if you don't want to do a VR game. All of these game engines are available for you to give them a go, and I can't bang on about it enough. Even if you think,
hasn't
just give it a go. You have nothing to lose from downloading UE4, doing some of the tutorials, and seeing if you get bitten by that little bug, which is so amazingly bitten Pat in the arse, or wherever it's been in the creative core of his brain.
Well, GTA 4 got delayed, so I don't really have much going on around Easter now.
GTA 4's been out since 2009, mate.
Sorry, 5.
Okay.
5. GTA 5.
Yeah. Even if you just spend an hour doing one tutorial, at least you can see if there's any sparks going off.
Yeah, man, that's what I did. I just found really simple fit stuff, and just did those. And when you realise that like those kind of basic things are really kind of easy to achieve, then it just gives you the confidence to kind of experiment with more things, and eventually you find yourself kind of just compulsively experimenting with it. And every single time I've done like a new thing, I've been able to use things I've learnt from the last thing, it's just I think I said it before. It's kind of like it's Minecraft for grown-ups. It really is. It's just quite a fun way to build things.
So, how far off do you think you are from having something like showable then?
Well, we're going to make a very short demo of the one that we're building at the moment, and I don't think it's going to take too long.
Weeks, I would expect. Yeah,
weeks. I mean, like the environment's all drawn. I have to be careful what I say. Most of the models are in. The sound is pretty much done. The music's done. So the stuff that remains is largely fluff and stuff to make it pretty. Brilliant timing with Unity 5. Because Unity 5 is all about making things look pretty. That's great. But yeah, I think it's going to be quite soon. I'm very excited.
Oh, we'll watch this space then, I guess.
Yeah.
This has been the Not Playing Podcast in partnership with notlistening.co.uk. You can get me on Twitter at Bobby Rocker, BOBIROKA.
I'm at EboGB, which is EBOWGB.
I'm at Patrick JKAY.
You can reach him via us at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for this show at notlistening.co.uk. If you're listening on iTunes, please do give us a review. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. See ya!
Farewell.